On a quiet Sunday afternoon in a small retail shop, a lone employee decides to straighten up some of the merchandise on the floor. It seemed like just another ordinary shift. Johann Salazar had punched in and was getting started by sorting through the store's inventory. Then, without any warning, he bolts toward the back of the store, visibly out of breath and trembling all over. In his own words, Johann described feeling something heavy suddenly pressed down onto his shoulders. Unsure of what could possibly be weighing on him, he pulls up the security footage from that exact moment and sees something that shakes him to his core. Here's what the camera recorded. It looks as though Johann's shirt and hoodie are being tugged by some unseen force. His first instinct was that someone had placed their hands on his back, so he spins around, expecting to find another person standing behind him. Nobody was there. He was completely certain that he had felt a significant weight bearing down on him, yet there was apparently nothing there at all. At least, that's how it appeared, because many who've watched the footage believe that the invisible pressure Johann experienced was almost certainly a spirit making direct physical contact with him. If that's true, its presence certainly made itself known. Ghost or not, Johann was left deeply rattled by the whole experience, and as of now, there have been no further updates on what actually happened that day. In this clip, a man wanders through the deserted lower level of a large building late at night, filming everything on his phone. The corridors look completely empty, and for a while, nothing seems out of the ordinary. Then, just as he ventures further in, something shatters the calm without any warning.
¿De dónde puede haber salido? A la mierda.
A thick book suddenly launches itself off a nearby surface and crashes to the floor with a startling thud, even though nobody is anywhere near it. What makes the moment so striking is the complete lack of any obvious explanation for why the object moved at all. Some people watching have jumped straight to paranormal conclusions, while others are convinced the whole thing was either set up or triggered by some unseen cause. We've all experienced that sensation. You're out at a park after dark, and the darkness around you feels just a little too thick. For a TikTok creator by the name of Moises, what started as a casual family evening turned into a textbook demonstration of paranormal hunting behavior. Most people watching this footage fixate on the eerie shape lurking near a tree, but once you take in the full scene, you start to understand that whatever was by that tree wasn't actually the main danger.
Oh, eso. No te vas a golpear la resbaladilla cuando te bajes.
¿Me bajo?
Sí.
¡Ey,
Mira,
Dana!
mira, mira. Espérate. Dana, ven. Amor. No, vengan, vengan, se me cae. Mira, cheque, a ver, miren el árbol aquel. No, yo, la neta, te lo juro que yo miraba algo. Como que se asomaba. A ver, vengan.
Ella me dio miedo.
¿Eh? No, es que yo miré algo, neta. No pasa nada. No, mi amor, no pasa nada, ven. No era nada, ven. ¿Qué?
¿Qué es?
No sé, no. No.
Te lo prometo que yo vi algo. No creo que sea, pero
Mira, sí se miró. ¡Hey! ¿Quién está ahí? Yo sí miré, alcancé a ver algo. Mira, ¿te checaste? ¿Viste?
¿qué es eso?
A ver. Oh, mira.
¿Qué es eso? Ay, no.
¡Hey! ¡Lujo! ¡Asómate!
Moises is spending time at a neighborhood park with his wife and young daughter when something catches his attention. He takes out his phone and zeroes in on a single tree standing in the distance. Keep your eyes on the trunk. You can make out two separate entities. One stays completely motionless, a dark sliver pressed against the side, while the second is actively moving, darting in and out at a speed that no human body should be capable of. Sensing that something is wrong, Moises calls his daughter to his side and starts backing away. He believes he has the situation under control, that he knows exactly where the threat is coming from. But here's what the footage reveals at the 39-second mark. As the family begins to walk away, the camera shifts slightly to the side. Nearly every viewer misses this because their eyes are still locked on the tree, but if you slow the clip down, you'll spot it. A tall, solid figure made entirely of shadow, standing motionless in the open darkness directly behind them, tracking their every movement. While Moises had his attention fixed on the two figures near the tree, this third entity had already quietly positioned itself at their backs. This is a classic pincer maneuver. One predator holds the prey's attention, while another closes in from the opposite direction. Later that same night, Moises goes back. He leaves his daughter at home this time, but returns to the park with his wife to find out whether the watchers are still present. The park is dead quiet, but the atmosphere has changed, less like a hunt and more like a show of dominance. As he scans the surrounding area, a piece of outdoor gym equipment starts moving completely on its own. There's no breeze, and nobody is anywhere near it. Displacing heavy objects is how certain entities demonstrate the physical force they're capable of exerting. It's a message. I can move this. Think carefully about what that means for you. Skeptics were quick to argue that it was simply a person crouching behind the tree. To shut that down, Moises filmed a third video. He stands behind that exact same tree to give a sense of scale. He's an average-sized man, yet the trunk barely conceals even half of his body. Remember, we observe two things simultaneously peeking out from behind it. For two beings to conceal themselves behind something that narrow, they would have to be physically impossible in their dimensions. When you factor in their apparent size, alongside the discovery that a third shadow had been circling the family from behind, a deeply unsettling picture starts to form. These aren't the spirits of former people. They are something altogether different, something slender, something organized, and something that clearly knows exactly what it's doing. On April 16th, 2016, a mother uploaded security camera footage from outside her house, walking viewers through the events of that evening. She explained that her son was startled by a series of loud sounds and went outside to investigate. The moment he stepped out, he spotted a motorcyclist tearing away from right in front of their property. A robbery had occurred in the neighborhood that very night, and those bikers were the ones behind it. Then, as the second motorcycle sped off down the street, the camera picked up something that's genuinely hard to explain. Without warning, a deeply unsettling figure materialized and appeared to sprint after the fleeing biker before being swallowed up by the darkness. You can clearly see the woman's son react with sheer panic and bolt back into the house. According to the description posted with the video, the mother stated that nothing remotely like this had ever occurred in their community. Nobody could account for where that figure came from, and nobody could explain where it went. It had a human shape, but its origin and its disappearance remain a complete mystery. So what do you think it actually was? After days of unexplained noises echoing through their home, one family decided to install ring cameras across their property, and what they recorded one night was difficult to dismiss. Pay close attention to what unfolds. A luminous orb appears to float through the room, and as it drifts toward the dog, lying on the floor, the animal suddenly bolts upright and sprints away, visibly spooked by whatever it was. Several nights later, the same glowing anomaly shows up again, drifting through that very same spot. But this time, right after the orb vanishes, their outdoor Ring camera sends them an alert, and what it caught will make you look twice. Over in the corner, a shadowy figure can be seen emerging from inside the house and stepping out before retreating back through the door. One of the family's dogs picks up on it and starts barking the moment it appears, which seems to be the reason it turns around and goes back in. To this day, the family still has no explanation for what's happening in and around their home, yet the bizarre sounds keep getting captured on camera. A guy had recently moved into a brand new apartment, thrilled at the idea of turning over a new leaf somewhere different. But barely a week into settling in, strange little things started catching his attention. Items around the place seemed to move on their own when his back was turned. He told himself it was probably just the anxiety of relocating messing with his head. Then one evening, while playing around with his phone set up as a makeshift camera, he snapped a series of random shots around his kitchen. When he went back through the photos later, what he saw nearly made his heart stop cold. See for yourself.
Finished checking my whole apartment. I just found out, oh my god, I just found out you can connect your camera to your computer that doesn't have a webcam, and you can use your phone as a camera. Okay, so I was on the photo booth app. I was just like, okay, let me play around with it. I haven't used this in forever, and oh my god, I'm so fucking scared. I was taking the photos, whatever, and I was looking back at them, and I saw that there's this black line, and it's because my cabinet opened a little bit, and I went to the next one, and I don't even know why this is like lit up back here. You know, this is like the thermal photo thing, and it's like lit up. So I kept going to the next one, and I swear I freaked out because one, I don't know how it opened, but two, I swear that's like a face right there. Like it's.
This next clip was originally posted to Reddit some years back by the user whose name you can see on screen. At the time, he was on shift at a cruise station somewhere in the UK. Late into the night, he and his colleagues began picking up a strange sound coming from a specific part of the station. It was loud, deeply unsettling, and nothing like anything they'd ever encountered before. Driven by curiosity and more than a little unease, they made their way toward the source and started filming what they were hearing.
We're not left there. I don't know what it is. I do, yeah. Just lift it up, I'll go under. Thanks, Gary and oh shit. Yeah. It fucking seemed, mate, and it fucking stopped. Do you not hear it? Stop.
Stop, yeah. Come on, well, get out.
According to the person who posted it, the noise stirred up serious concern among everyone working there that night. Security teams and transport police were eventually called in to sweep the area, checking whether it could have been an injured person, a stray animal, or some other explainable source, but they came up empty-handed. So here's the question: was this genuinely something beyond explanation caught on film, or is there a rational answer hiding somewhere? Drop your thoughts down in the comments below. Jorge has been uploading video after video to TikTok, documenting what appears to be a full-blown haunting unfolding inside his own house. His wife and children have been right there alongside him, each experiencing disturbing things they simply cannot account for. An oppressive, suffocating presence seems to hang over every corner of their home. When a new baby girl joined the family, Jorge decided to mount a camera directly over her crib to make sure she was safe through the night. What that camera recorded in the early hours of the morning was something nobody was prepared for. Without warning, the bedroom door swung shut on its own. A few seconds later, a dark, shapeless mass began to materialize inside the room. This deeply unsettling figure drifted closer and closer to the infant, appearing to loom directly above the crib. And in that moment, one of her toys was flung across the room as if thrown by an invisible hand. Just as suddenly as it appeared, the entity disappeared entirely, and the silence that followed was broken by 3 distinct knocks, echoing from somewhere within the room. If something like that showed up hovering over your newborn in the dead of night, would you take it as a warning sign? Because honestly, the only reasonable response at that point is to grab everything you own and get out as fast as humanly possible. On September 19th, 2017, a magnitude 7.1 earthquake tore through central Mexico, claiming hundreds of lives and reducing buildings to rubble. Among the most heartbreaking locations was a collapsed school, where children were feared to be buried beneath the debris. Rescue teams on the ground reported picking up faint sounds during their search. News cameras were rolling throughout the operation, and one particular broadcast caught something that stopped viewers in their tracks. People watching at home immediately noticed it and started capturing it themselves.
Y en la parte de arriba lo están tratando de hacer desde el techo de este, digamos, como balcón. Hay socorristas, tanto de la Cruz Roja como del Ejército Mexicano y del Plan Marina, que están pues con los planos del edificio en mano y continúan la versión de que están muy cerca de lo que era el área de cocina y el área del comedor.
Nestled within a crack in the crumbling wall, a pale, childlike face can be seen, seemingly observing the rescue effort below. It doesn't move at all, carrying with it an unsettling, almost hollow quality. What adds another layer of strangeness is that the spot appears completely empty at first, and then, moments later, the face is just there. There are those who believe it may be the spirit of a child who never made it out. Others are convinced there's a more grounded explanation. So what's your take on what was captured in that clip? At around 4:24 in the morning on March 11th, 2023, a dash cam mounted in a truck recorded something unsettling along a dark, desolate stretch of road. Judge for yourself what you're about to see. An unidentified figure appeared out of nowhere, then vanished just as suddenly. When the clip is slowed down and the image is zoomed in, what emerges looks like a semi-transparent, greyish, humanoid shape standing right in the middle of the road. The video exploded across the internet almost immediately, igniting a wave of theories and heated debate. Some viewers are convinced the camera inadvertently caught something that defies explanation, while others are quick to point out that dark filming conditions can produce lighting artifacts and lens glitches that look eerily convincing. So where do you stand on this one? Paranormal investigator from Mexico says he came face to face with something nobody has been able to make sense of. According to him, what his camera recorded left him absolutely stunned. He had ventured into a derelict structure at the request of his followers, and what he encountered inside stopped him cold. See for yourself what was caught on camera.
¿Qué es eso? ¿Quién eres? ¿Quién eres?
As he moves through the space, something at the far end of the corridor catches his attention. Once he directs his light toward it, you can make out a dark, motionless shape just standing there, seemingly locked in place. He reacts with a jolt of fear, and in an instant, the figure dissolves downward into the floor as if it were made of vapor. It appeared solid, almost like a human silhouette, yet it sinks straight into the ground without leaving any trace behind. There is simply no rational explanation for it. So where do you stand on this? Genuine paranormal activity or an elaborate setup? Our next piece of footage comes from a CCTV unit mounted on a quiet suburban road, set up by a local resident to keep an eye on their home. Whatever is visible in this recording appears to be drifting along the street just beyond the property's boundary. Now, according to stories passed down in the area, this town is believed to be stalked by a shadowy supernatural presence that only makes itself known when death is near. And on the very night this video was taken, the person who posted it online says their next door neighbor suddenly died. So was that pure chance? Or is there something far darker going on here? On September 19th, 2025, a creator known as 2Swag and his team set out to explore the abandoned Cincinnati Mills Mall, also referred to as Forest Fair Mall. Once promoted as one of the first super malls in the United States, the complex eventually fell apart due to money troubles and dwindling foot traffic, shutting its doors and earning a reputation as one of the biggest abandoned shopping centers on the planet. Spanning more than 1.5 million square feet, getting inside was no easy feat. At least 3 security guards were said to be rotating shifts around the perimeter, keeping a close eye on every entry point, which meant the crew had to stay low and move carefully.
This guy's jacket is still hooked up. There's all the keys. Oh no. Bro, security. This is the security office. We need to get out of here, bro. This is enemy territory.
Once they made it in, they found themselves deep inside a vast, crumbling structure. Empty storefronts lined the halls, their old signage still barely legible, while corridor after corridor stretched out in eerie silence. Just when they thought they were in the clear, a guard spotted them and sent the whole crew sprinting for the exit.
We found an open door. Yeah, we did. We'll leave. We'll leave.
We'll leave.
But they weren't done. A month passed, and they came back for another attempt. They slipped in the same way as before, this time with their sights set on parts of the mall they hadn't yet reached. Among their finds was a movie theater that was still standing but had been gutted entirely. Every seat stripped out, leaving nothing but an empty, cavernous room where audiences once gathered.
Okay, we're in the movie theater. So this was a cinema. It sucks that the seats are gone. It's still pretty cool. I wonder why they took them out. Alright, I'm pretty sure all of these are going to be the same, so we're going to keep moving on. Oh my god. Alright, let's see out here. So there's supposedly a guy down there, and there's a playground, and everyone gets caught at the playground. It's way at the end, supposedly. We can't really see, can we?
They also came across a baby store that was remarkably well preserved, with shelving, product displays, and even old checkout counters still sitting in place. Nearby, a former Bass Pro Shop space revealed a massive fish tank still standing and the remains of a shooting gallery, small reminders of just how varied this mall's offerings once were.
It was one of the last to close. This is nuts. They left all of the shelves and pretty much everything in here. I didn't realize baby stores can be this big. And look over here. These are all the registers. They still have all the cards. These are all being sold. $125 for each of these. Definitely not worth it.
The whole thing came to a head when security caught up with them once again. Things escalated fast as the guard accused the group of breaking in and launched into a full chase, forcing the crew to cut the exploration short and flee the enormous decaying structure behind them.
We're leaving. We're leaving. We're leaving.
Hey. Yo, he's full on chasing us, bro. Hey.
Close. Watch it.
Why y'all running? You was in here before, weren't you?
No.
Yeah, you was.
No, I wasn't.
Yeah, you was. You was just in here like a month ago.
No, I wasn't.
Yes, you was. You was in here with another person.
No, I wasn't.
Yes, you was.
We're willing to leave, man. We didn't do nothing.
Nah, you did. You broke in.
I didn't break in.
Yes, you did.
I'll show you the door.
No, you're not showing nothing. You broke in. I did not. Yes, you did. I promise you. It's criminal damaging if you're in here.
We didn't break.
There ain't no gain in entry. Goofy motherfucker. You gotta be slow. Literally, you gotta be slow. Running ain't gonna get you nowhere, dumbass.
Where'd you go? Which way? Which way? That way. Wait, this way.
While making his way through a derelict building, one man begins to sense that he isn't the only one there. On the surface, the place appears completely deserted. Nothing but dim corridors, crumbling rooms, and the sort of quiet that only settles in spaces the world has left behind. Yet the further he ventures inside, the more oppressive the air around him feels, until that nagging sensation becomes impossible to shake. He eventually decides it's time to get out, but just before he reaches the exit, something stops him cold.
Yee. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah. فكرت في إشي هون أخوان. ها؟ سمعت الصوت؟ صوت الباب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. اسمع صوت الصراخ. اسمع. طب وين الكتاب؟ فكرت فيه.
As he moves toward the door, a ghostly pale face emerges from behind a doorframe. It doesn't flinch. It doesn't pull back. It simply locks eyes with him, as though whatever it belongs to has been patiently waiting for him to look its way. Rattled but unable to let it go, he rushes over to the doorway to get a better look, only to find absolutely nothing there. No sound of retreating footsteps, no one crouched in the shadows, not a single sign that anything had been standing in that spot moments before. So what exactly was staring back at him from the depths of that forgotten building? A squatter lurking in the darkness, or something beyond explanation that disappeared the instant he came too close? Footage like this makes you seriously question whether certain places are truly empty, or whether they were ever really abandoned at all. At roughly 11:40 on a Sunday night, the security system inside a hospital dialysis clinic was rolling. 2 nurses working the overnight shift were wrapping things up, with one remaining patient nearly ready to head home. One of the nurses, Josephine, mentioned that the sound of something rustling around in nearby trash cans kept drawing their attention, apparently a common enough occurrence at that time of night that they'd learned to brush it off. What unfolded the moment both nurses left the room simultaneously was anything but ordinary. The patient seated in the wheelchair, completely composed just moments before, suddenly threw her hands over her face and let out a scream. Josephine later recalled that the woman described a deformed figure moving directly toward her. The main camera angle shows no one anywhere near her, but if you pay close attention to the reflection in the television screen visible in the background, there's something there. A dark form materializes in that reflection, and then, within just a few seconds, shifts its position to directly behind the woman before vanishing entirely. Left alone in that room for only a brief window of time, she screamed at something she described as deliberately approaching her, and in the TV's reflection, a shape appears, closes in, and disappears. When the nurses returned, they found nothing. The woman's reaction leaves little room for interpretation. That isn't disorientation or physical pain. That is someone who came face to face with something that frightened them to their core. As for whether what appeared in that reflection was responsible, or whether something else entirely occupied that room, no one who has put this footage out there has been willing to draw a firm conclusion. That part is up to you. Trail cameras positioned in a wooded stretch near Waitsboro, North Carolina, picked up something unexpected back in August of 2021. The equipment had originally been placed there to track local wildlife. You can tell by the deer feeder sitting right in front of the lens. But rather than capturing animals, it recorded a barefoot blonde woman moving through the trees alone in the dead of night. She was clutching a long stick, leaning on it as she made her way through the forest. What's particularly strange is that in the earlier frames, she wasn't carrying it yet, which has led some people to think she may have hurt herself at some point during her time out there. In one frame, she appears to move quickly past the camera, almost like she was rushing towards something or away from someone. Then, several months down the line, in May of 2022, the partial remains of an unidentified woman were found not far from that very spot. She had apparently been out there for close to a year, and due to the severe decomposition, investigators couldn't establish who she was, though portions of her clothing had survived the elements. Detectives noted that those garments bore a striking resemblance to what the woman in the trail camera photos had been wearing. Once the images circulated online, people across the internet started working to put a name to her face. One leading theory suggested she could be Amber Ray Johnston, who went missing in August 2021 following a troubling Facebook live stream. Another possibility that gained traction was Michelle Wright, a North Carolina woman who had vanished earlier that year back in February 2021. Even so, with all the speculation and the investigation still ongoing, who this woman actually was and what really happened to her out in those woods remains completely unknown. A disturbing encounter was recorded on a man's home security camera as he made his way down to his basement. He was doing nothing more than heading down to check on a few things when the moment he stepped into the basement hallway, something stopped him cold. A dark, pitch black shape materialized right in front of him out of nowhere. See for yourself. The camera captures him walking into the hallway when, without warning, a shadowy mass appears and moves straight in his direction. Visibly shaken, the man spins around to confront whatever it was, only to find the room it seemed to disappear into completely empty. He was left utterly stunned, absolutely certain that what he had just come face to face with was a real paranormal entity. One comes from Daz Preston, a 69-year-old UK blogger who spends his time chronicling outdoor adventures and testing gear across the British countryside. His border collie, Ace, tags along on most trips, which guarantees a certain level of lovable unpredictability. Here's what the footage revealed. July 2nd, 2021, a stretch of remote woodland outside Clipstone in Nottinghamshire.
I've set up a trail camera. See if anybody comes around at night. So set that up. Probably get me on it now. So Ace is having his biscuits. He's got his bowl of water. So hopefully we'll be gone before 6 o'clock in the morning anyway. So I'll get my night vision now. Yeah, hopefully we'll be gone before 6 o'clock. I've got my head torch with me. It's not a very good light, but it's alright, it'll do. Not the brightest of things. Right, so like I say, I'll come back to you. What I did find when I was here, it looks like somebody's been building a den anyway. Look at this. Somebody's already built something.
Brand new tent, a dog encountering camping for the first time, pitch black surroundings, complete solitude. Every ingredient you deliberately choose if you were building the opening scene of a horror film designed to unsettle with almost nothing.
And I've heard quite a few noises really. So what's them noises? It was only Ace's belly. Bloody dog's belly making noises. And then to top it off, he snuggled himself into me. And he's ended up with half a sleeping bag. And he's down there. So he's ended up.
A quick investigation solves the mystery. Ace, dead asleep, has silently claimed the entire sleeping bag as his personal domain. The terrifying presence lurking in the dark turns out to have 4 paws and absolutely no remorse when it comes to stealing bedding.
I look, he's tired. Just woke up absolutely. It was alright, it was nice and warm, it wasn't cold. The thing is, I put the tent in a bit of a dip. So I've ended up rolling a little bit. He's been comfy, he's not even moved. He's been well chilled out, ain't you, lad? Yeah. What are you doing? Cleaning? Oh yeah. Never heard it really. Like I say, woke up, I heard his belly going. Did hear something outside. I don't know what time that was. But it wasn't, I don't know if it was fox or something like that, so hopefully that wildlife camera has caught me. If it has, I'll put it on the end of the video, see if it's caught anything. But yeah, all in all, it's been not a bad night, not a bad time.
Then, a little later, something genuinely stirs outside the tent. Real movement this time. Daz finds himself wondering whether the trail camera is about to capture a fox or perhaps something with a bit more dramatic flair, and he's not fully convinced he wants to find out. But the true story of the night ends up being entirely mundane. One commandeered sleeping bag and a dog whose digestive system apparently answers to no one. Come sunrise, Daz breaks camp, leaves the site spotless, and heads home with golden morning views and a trail camera that, fingers crossed, managed to record actual wildlife rather than further updates from Ace's stomach. In Melbourne, Amber Carter and her friend Tiana had pulled up outside a McDonald's well past midnight, halfway through their food, and passing the time the way plenty of people do on a quiet night. The parking lot was nearly deserted, the kind of stillness that doesn't seem threatening at first. Then something in the rearview mirror caught Amber's eye. A figure at the far end of the lot was making their way toward the car. No urgency, no shouting, just a slow, steady approach. It seemed like nothing at first, but as the figure drew closer, the mood inside the car began to change. The conversation trailed off. The food they were holding suddenly felt irrelevant because something about the way that person was moving toward them felt genuinely off.
Oh my god, Tiana, go! Go! Oh my god, oh my god! Oh my god! Tiana! It's okay, honey. Tiana! Tiana!
Without warning, a woman materialized right outside the passenger window. Nobody had watched her walk over. One moment the lot was clear, and then she was simply there, head tilted at an angle, eyes fixed through the glass without so much as a blink. Her movements had a quality that was hard to describe, rigid and mechanical, as if something else was operating her limbs. Then the passenger door handle was yanked downward, once, then again, then again. The woman began wrenching at it repeatedly, not saying a single word, never letting her gaze wander. The only sounds were the clattering of the handle and Amber's voice screaming at Tiana to get them out of there. For just a moment, Amber said the woman didn't even seem human. She looked like something lifted straight out of a nightmare, something that had no business standing in that parking lot. But what came out afterward was the part that really stuck. People in the area claimed they had spotted the same woman drifting through parking lots in the dead of night, moving silently between vehicles, pausing just long enough to try each handle, methodically working her way through, seeing which one might give. And in an isolated place with no one around to help you, a locked car door is the only thing standing between you and whatever comes next. While exploring the John Lowe murder house for signs of paranormal activity, the Paranormal Files crew ended up being frightened not by anything supernatural, but by a living, breathing human being. They had already wrapped up filming and stepped outside when one of the team noticed some equipment had been left inside, forcing them to head back in and grab it. On their way back to the vehicle, they suddenly became aware that someone was sprinting toward them from out of the darkness along the rural road. This came just moments after one of the crew had brought up how people sometimes lurk in the surrounding woods, waiting to ambush unsuspecting visitors. Colin managed to get his camera on the figure's flashlight as it closed in on them down the road.
Oh my god, I just ran onto the story mode.
What? Are we stuck? Stop. Are we stuck?
Man, there's a torch.
Are we stuck? No, we're good.
No, I just drove a bunch of the f***ing log in front of us. Bro, what the f***?
They're running. They're running at us.
There's someone with a light.
They're sprinting.
Is this a public road?
Yeah.
That connects to somewhere else?
Yeah. He literally started sprinting.
It's chilling to imagine what might have unfolded had that person actually reached them. Whether they intended to intimidate or genuinely meant harm remains unknown. But one thing is certain, the team was incredibly lucky to have made it out of there. In the following clip, what starts as a heartwarming family gathering takes a deeply unsettling turn. The footage centers on an elderly woman bathed in the warm glow of candles as her family sings to her. It's a standard, grainy home video, but the atmosphere subtly shifts when you look past the festivities and focus on the open doorway in the background. As the song reaches its peak, a distinct, childlike shadow darts across the room. The movement is quick but deliberate, and the shape clearly resembles a little girl. Watch closely. The grandmother appears entirely unaware of the anomaly behind her, completely absorbed in the moment. Yet, the camera captures what the human eye easily missed in the chaotic joy of the celebration. What makes this particularly chilling is the context that often accompanies such manifestations in paranormal circles. Some viewers theorize that the shadow may be deeply connected to the grandmother's past. A common narrative attached to this footage suggests that the woman may have lost a young daughter many decades ago. If that is the case, could this be the residual energy of a child returning to celebrate her mother's milestone? Or perhaps more ominously, certain folklore dictates that the sudden appearance of a long-deceased loved one acts as a harbinger, a spectral sign that they are preparing to guide the elderly family member to the other side. Is this simply a trick of the lighting, a living relative passing by unnoticed, or a fleeting glimpse of an entity from beyond the veil? I'll let you come up with your own conclusions. In this next clip, we see exactly why working in a mortuary or a funeral home requires a profound level of mental fortitude and an inherent comfort with the concept of mortality. These facilities are designed to be final way stations for the deceased, places where families gather to release their heaviest, most agonizing emotions. Because of this intense concentration of grief and transition, paranormal researchers have long considered funeral homes to be highly active epicenters for the supernatural. Usually, this activity is thought to be residual, a sort of emotional echo permanently etched into the very foundations of the building. But what happens when that energy stops being a simple echo and begins to interact with the living? Recently, a mortuary worker began documenting her shifts after noticing a disturbing pattern of inexplicable disturbances, and her footage provides a terrifying look at an escalation that defies all logical explanation. The deeply unsettling series of events begins early one morning before the facility is officially open. The worker is alone, surrounded by the sterile, quiet atmosphere of the embalming rooms, quietly prepping for the arduous tasks ahead. Having felt a heavy, oppressive presence in the building during previous night shifts, she decides to keep her camera rolling. The silence of the mortuary is profound, but it doesn't take long for that quiet to be violently broken by an auditory anomaly. Take a look. Listening closely, the vocalization carries a highly peculiar tone. It sounds like a hollow, agonizing wail that almost borders on a mocking laugh. In the context of a funeral home, one might easily write this off as a trick of the acoustics or a draft whistling through the ventilation. However, the sheer volume and human-like cadence of the sound make it incredibly difficult to debunk. But as her documentation continues over the following days, it becomes terrifyingly clear that this presence is not just a passive recording of the past. It is fully aware of her, and it is growing bolder. In a subsequent recording, the worker is no longer alone. She is joined by her son, who frequently accompanies her to assist with the heavy lifting and late-night duties. The presence of a second witness completely shifts the dynamic, grounding the experience in absolute reality. Watch their immediate reaction as the physical environment begins to manipulate itself right in front of their eyes.
Are you always alone when you're there at night? So thankfully I'm not always alone. My son also comes to help me. He has been by my side for the last few years. He's gonna be 19 soon, but he is so respectful, and he also helps on removals, and he helps me dress the loved ones. That's what we just got done with now. Tonight we had a loved one that was in really good shape, very peaceful, and it didn't take us long. And it's to the point where I don't even have to tell him what to do. He is already seasoned enough to know what we need to do. He hands me the correct tools. You know, he's a really good help. And I'm so thankful that Was that you?
No.
Was that you?
No. Look at the video, wasn't me.
What was that?
I don't know.
Well, what'd you hear?
I don't know. I don't know.
Why is that always happening?
I don't know.
Okay, well, I'm just thankful that he's here. So,
I don't.
and we're done. So.
A heavy, solid door is caught moving entirely on its own, unprompted by any visible force. Mortuary and hospital-grade doors are notoriously weighty, deliberately designed to seal off specific rooms and prevent air circulation. A simple draft, or the natural settling of an old building, simply does not possess the kinetic energy required to unlatch and move a door of that size. The genuine visceral shock on her son's face is perhaps the most compelling piece of evidence here. His fight or flight response is triggered instantly. This leap from an auditory phenomenon to a physical manipulation strongly suggests the anomaly has gathered enough energy to interact with our three-dimensional space. From this point forward, the tension within the facility compounds at a rapid pace, and the entity begins to localize its activity. While standing in the corridor, the mother and son are suddenly frozen by the sound of aggressive, inexplicable shouting originating from the facility's chapel.
Hey you guys, we haven't made a video in a little while, so I just wanted to come on and kind of refresh everybody with just a little mortician tip here. I don't know if everybody's aware. So when you bring in the clothing to the funeral home, yes, you want your loved one dressed in something either they loved, or say they were in the military and they have, you know, military getup that they want on, their favorite shirt, their favorite pants, pajamas even, just so everyone's aware. I think that this is something people don't tend to think about. But in our world, when families bring us clothing, sometimes they're not aware that in order for the clothing to really fit properly, say it's too big, too small, we have to cut the back of the clothing in order to place it on your loved one. So sometimes if families request the favorite shirt back, or, you know, their favorite set of whatever they have on, it will be cut. It's very rare, unless the clothing is perfectly fitted to that person, that the director won't have to cut it. I've worked in several funeral homes where they don't cut it, and it... Is anybody here?
No, what is
Who's here?
Time to go.
We're the only ones here. I have to go look. Okay, let's go. We're going.
The chapel is the emotional core of any funeral home, the exact room where the living confront their final goodbyes. The voices captured here are not faint whispers caught on a sensitive audio recorder. They are loud, confrontational shouts, echoing from a completely empty room. The aggression in the anomaly is so palpable that her son immediately states they need to leave, a primal instinct that the mother quickly and wisely agrees with. Fear is a natural response, and when an unseen entity begins raising its voice in an empty building, retreating is often the safest protocol. However, the most terrifying escalation occurs on an entirely separate day, proving that the entity is not a fleeting visitor, but a permanent resident. While filming in the facility, another loud, jarring noise emanates from the chapel doors. Rather than retreating this time, the mother and son decide to cautiously approach the room to investigate the source. But whatever is dwelling in that chapel seemingly senses their approach and pushes back with a massive display of power.
So we're here working. We were hearing some noises in the chapel, so we actually decided to come in the chapel and make this informative video to see if we could catch any of the noises. So I'm gonna explain what this is on today's mortuary information video. So there are times where we get loved ones who are donors. They're bone donors. They take skin, they take what they can for things that anybody may need, right? So when they come to us, we have to prepare them properly, and sometimes there are issues where there can be leakage. So in order to prevent the leakage and keep it contained, the deceased would go in one of these, which is called a unional. A unional contains all of the fluid and contains all the fluid, and it makes sure that while your loved one is being presented in the visitation, we don't have any issues with anything, you know. Okay, let's go see, because now I'm in the chapel and I'm not. Oh my God.
Did the lights go
Dude,
off
the
on
lights
you?
went off right when that happened.
You wanna go?
It's always when we're recording, it never fails.
The camera.
Anyways.
Just as they step forward to uncover the source of the disturbance, the lights in the corridor are completely severed, plunging them into absolute darkness. This sudden blackout is deeply baffling and crosses a dangerous line. In paranormal theory, it is widely believed that spirits and entities require vast amounts of ambient energy to manifest physically or audibly. They will often drain batteries, drop the ambient temperature, or siphon power directly from a building's electrical grid. The precise timing of this blackout suggests an intelligent entity capable of manipulating the environment, either draining the power to gather strength for a larger manifestation or intentionally plunging the room into darkness to assert dominance and incite terror. It is a calculated, psychological strike against the witnesses. Even after this intense, confrontational encounter, the presence refuses to back down, continually toying with the worker and her environment. In a final piece of footage, the mortuary worker is attempting to film a standard update, speaking calmly to the camera. Yet, the entity reminds her exactly who is in control of the space. The lighting above her begins to pulse and flicker erratically. To prove there is no logical interference, she immediately pans the camera to the wall, revealing a completely empty hallway and confirming that no one is anywhere near the light switch.
Everyone, it's 11:45 p.m. and I'm here at the funeral home, and I wanted to make a video to kind of explain. A lot of people aren't aware or are confused as to why funeral directors are at the funeral home at 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the morning. So death can occur at any time, morning, afternoon, evening, and funeral directors have to be ready to go at any time. So you know, if a funeral director gets a call, they'll make that removal at the place of death, bring the loved one to the funeral home, and if they are going to be embalmed, that embalming is usually done at that time. So funeral directors can be at the funeral home all night. If they are getting multiple calls while they're embalming, they have to stop and go and come and finish and go and come and stop and all that stuff. So sometimes funeral directors are at the funeral home all night, and then they have to work in the office the next morning, meeting with families, taking out services. It can get really exhausting, but for me tonight, I am here, or I just got finished dressing a loved one for their services tomorrow. And I like to come in the night because there's no one here. It's peaceful, it's quiet. I can take my time and pay 100% full attention to that loved one without worrying, you know, oh, I have to go answer the phone, or I have to leave on a call. I can just actually come and take my time and concentrate. So I do like coming in the night because of that. And okay, that was weird. I don't like that. The light switch is right there. The light just flickered. And I'm gonna cut this video short because that is cue for it's my time to go.
The intelligence behind these combined occurrences is highly disturbing. We are looking at a clear, methodical escalation. What began as a distant, mournful cry evolved into the physical manipulation of heavy doors, aggressive vocalizations, and the deliberate, targeted manipulation of the building's electrical system. The facility appears to be hosting something that absolutely demands to be acknowledged. Is this simply the collected, heavy energy of 1,000 grieving families manifesting physically in the architecture, or has a specific, highly intelligent entity refused to cross over, trapping itself forever between the chapel and the embalming room? I'll leave you to be the judge. In this next clip, a worker at what appears to be a large cemetery or mortuary complex captures a series of events that suggest he is far from alone during his night shift. According to the man recording, he began documenting the area after noticing small objects being toyed with by an unseen force. Though he speaks in Spanish, the terror in his voice is universal as he repeatedly asks, "Who is there?" The footage begins with a focus on a simple water bottle resting on a flat stone ledge. Take a look.
¿Vieron la botella? ¿Vieron la botella? ¿La vieron? Si estás aquí, manifiéstate. Escucho algo. Escucho algo. ¿Hola? Mira, se cayó, se cayó, se cayó, se cayó, se cayó. Al mismo tiempo, amigos, al mismo tiempo. Mira alguien ahí al fondo. Buenas noches. ¡Ay, Dios! ¡Ay, Dios! ¡Ay, Dios! No, 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 no. ¿Qué es eso? ¿Hola? Ay. ¿Quién eres? Ay. Ven. ¿Hay alguien aquí? ¿Hay alguien aquí? ¿Hola?
The initial movement of the water bottle is unsettling. It doesn't slide as if pushed by a localized draft, but rather shifts with a deliberate jerky motion that suggests a physical grip. As the worker ventures deeper into the narrow corridors between the tombs, the activity becomes more aggressive. A large plastic container is caught on camera falling and tumbling across his path, appearing as though it were violently thrown from the dark recesses of the complex. The anomaly only deepens when the camera pans toward the back of the graveyard, briefly catching a glimpse of a pale, stationary figure standing over a grave in the distance. The most baffling part of this encounter, however, involves the religious iconography present at the site. Among the various items being manipulated, the large cross mounted atop one of the tombs appears to shift and tilt on its own. In paranormal research, the physical movement of heavy, fixed objects, especially those of a religious nature, is often categorized as high-energy poltergeist activity. It suggests an entity capable of significant kinetic output, or perhaps a residual energy that has become strong enough to influence the physical world. If you were alone in a graveyard and witnessed a cross-shifting of its own accord, would you stay to see what manifested next, or would you find a new line of work? In the following clip, you're about to watch, we see a terrifying encounter that turns a completely mundane, everyday space into a nightmare. The guy filming is just making his way through a quiet, empty utility room. It seems like a completely normal, boring walk until the dead silence is suddenly broken by something you never want to hear when you think you're alone. And whatever makes that sound follows it up immediately with a massive, aggressive display of physical force right in front of him. Watch how fast his survival instincts kick in when he realizes what is standing in the aisle with him.
I know.
Moving a heavy, front-loading appliance door on its hinges requires a significant amount of physical strength. It's not something a draft or a slightly uneven floor is going to accomplish. But where this happens is actually the most interesting piece of the puzzle. In paranormal lore, utility rooms, basements, and laundry areas are notorious hotbeds for spiritual activity. Paranormal investigators widely believe that water is a massive conductor for spiritual energy. Entities naturally gravitate toward places with heavy plumbing, drainage, and large electrical appliances. Those elements combined create a massive, easily accessible pool of kinetic and electromagnetic energy for them to draw from in order to physically manifest. Whatever is sharing that room with him isn't just a weak, residual spirit. It has siphoned enough ambient energy from its environment to not only project its voice, but to physically interact with the real world. It wanted to stop him right in his tracks and show him exactly who was in control of that room. What do you think was sharing that room with him? I'll leave you to be the judge. In the next clip, we see exactly why exploring sealed-off, abandoned buildings at night is always a terrible idea. The guy filming is standing outside a completely deserted house, and you can immediately tell he already knows he shouldn't be there. He unlocks the door to go inside, but before he even crosses the threshold, he starts loudly praying. Whether he heard something moving around inside from the porch, or the energy of the place was just that overwhelmingly heavy, his instincts were screaming at him that the house wasn't actually empty, and he barely takes a few steps inside before he gets violent, physical confirmation. Keep your eyes locked on the dark doorway straight ahead of him.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يابا بسم الله يا بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا بسم الله بسم الله بسم الله بسم الله
The sheer amount of physical force required to throw that bed to the floor like that is staggering, and you can clearly see what did it too. But the absolute scariest part of this video isn't the initial scare, it's the aftermath. When he finally gathers the courage to walk into that room to see what just threw the bed, it is completely, impossibly empty. There are no footsteps running away, no one hiding in the corner, just a wrecked room. In a lot of Middle Eastern and Islamic paranormal lore, abandoned spaces like this are heavily associated with the jinn. Unlike traditional ghosts, which are the spirits of deceased humans, jinn are considered an entirely different species of entities that live alongside us, often claiming empty, ruined houses as their own territory. When a human walks into their domain, they don't just give you a spooky, subtle haunting. They aggressively defend their ground to scare you out. Moving that fast, displaying that much physical power, and vanishing without a trace is a classic hallmark of a jinn telling you to get out of its house immediately. In this next clip, we dive into one of the most unsettling phenomena in the paranormal world. Children seeing things that adults completely miss. People don't just randomly film their family sleeping for no reason. This kind of terrifying incident had actually been happening for a while, which is exactly why the father finally decided to set up a night vision camera in their room to capture it. They are all fast asleep until the little girl suddenly wakes up in an absolute panic. Skeptics will immediately try to brush this off as just a a standard childhood nightmare, but her body language completely disproves that. When a kid wakes up from a bad dream, they usually just cry and bury their face in their parents' chests for comfort, because the scary thing was inside their head. But she doesn't do that. Her eyes are locked on a very specific physical spot in the room. She is actively tracking something. Watch what happens to her level of terror when her dad actually tries to walk into the dark to check it out. In the paranormal community, it is a widely accepted theory that young children possess a much broader sensory frequency than adults. Because their minds haven't been conditioned to logically filter out the impossible yet, they are highly sensitive to spiritual entities and energy shifts that we are completely blind to. The most chilling part of this footage is her reaction when her father steps toward the area she's staring at. She starts screaming purely because she doesn't want him going over there. She isn't remembering a scary dream. She is actively watching something standing in the dark, and she is genuinely terrified for her dad's safety. When a child reacts with that much intense protective panic to an empty space, you don't go investigate the dark. You just turn on every light in the house and maybe call for an exorcism. In the next clip, we are taking a look at a place that most people actively try to avoid, especially after dark: the basement of a funeral home. According to the caption, a worker was just heading down into the storage and receiving area for the bodies. This is the exact room where the recently deceased are first brought in off the street. Naturally, it's supposed to be the quietest, most completely still room in the entire building. But as he walks into the dark, the dead silence is violently interrupted. Keep your eyes on the heavy metal equipment standing right in the middle of the room.
Estamos aquí en la funeraria, otra vez, con ruidos raros. Entonces, pues, está solo. Ahora sí, ¿cuál pinche que se ve? Que nada. Estoy solo a la chingada. Estoy solo. A la chingada. A la chingada. A la... No mames. A la chingada.
It takes a very deliberate, aggressive amount of physical force to knock heavy funeral stands straight to the floor like that. That isn't a draft from an AC vent, and it isn't a clumsy bump. That is a targeted, violent push. When you dive into paranormal theory, funeral homes are basically considered massive spiritual transit stations. They are the ultimate liminal space between the physical world and whatever comes next. Because of that, investigators believe these buildings are constantly flooded with the confused, restless energy of spirits who might not even realize they have passed away yet. However, a sudden, violent display of kinetic energy usually points to something much heavier than just a confused ghost. Throwing heavy objects is often a sign of immense frustration from a trapped spirit. Even worse, it could be a darker, parasitic entity that actively feeds on the intense residual grief and heavy atmosphere of the morgue, lashing out at the lone worker just to prove that it is the one truly in charge of the basement. This next clip shows one of the most violent and chaotic examples of a spiritual home invasion you will ever come across. But to understand how scary this was for the poster, we need to go back a few days. The guy who lives here experienced something on a day when he was actually miles away, out performing a show. In the middle of his set, he suddenly became violently ill. He felt shaky, weak, and described it as if his energy was being completely drained right out of his body. Trusting his gut that something was horribly wrong, he pulled out his phone to check his home security cameras. What he saw unfolding in his empty kitchen is absolute nightmare fuel. The cross on his wall was turned upside down. There was a scary sound coming from his kitchen, and chairs were being thrown around. Because of this, he decided to put more cameras around his house, and one day while he was sleeping, this happened. Pay close attention to the bedroom door and keep your eyes locked on the vintage items sitting on top of his dresser. Seeing a bedroom door slowly creak open on its own is creepy enough, but the movement on that dresser takes this to a whole new level of disturbing. That doll doesn't just fall over from a vibration, it is being actively dragged back and forth, left and right, exactly like unseen hands are physically playing with it. In paranormal research, vintage dolls are notorious for acting as spiritual sponges or trigger objects. Because they are designed in the likeness of humans, dark entities often use them as vessels or focal points to manipulate physical energy. What you are seeing here is a classic psychological intimidation tactic. The entity opened the bedroom door to physically demonstrate that it has free reign of his house, and it started toying with the doll to mock a childlike innocence while he is completely unconscious and defenseless. It is a terrifying physical reminder that when you are dealing with an attachment of this level, you are never truly alone, especially when you close your eyes. When people asked why he hasn't moved out yet, he revealed that he did just move into this place, and whatever this is, didn't come with the house, it is attached to him. It followed him from his previous place. What would you do if you were in his shoes? In the next clip, we look at why pulling an all-nighter at the office can sometimes be a terrifying idea. Corporate buildings are designed for daytime hustle, but when everyone goes home, the lights dim and the space empties out, the atmosphere completely changes. The guy in this security footage is working late and decides to catch a quick nap at his desk. But it becomes very clear very quickly that he isn't the only one clocking in for the graveyard shift. It starts with a few classic, unsettling disruptions designed to wake him up and get his attention. But watch how aggressively the energy shifts when he finally gets up to investigate. You can literally see his panic escalate in real time. It starts with the phantom phone call, a classic terrifying poltergeist tactic. In paranormal research, entities manipulating electronics like phones or radios is often seen as an attempt to bridge the frequency gap, or simply a deliberate way to demand your undivided attention. When he picks up and hears dead air, the entity immediately pivots to physical manipulation. Moving a heavy office chair on its wheels takes effort, but aggressively throwing that black chair completely to the floor is a massive display of kinetic power. In the paranormal field, office hauntings are actually highly documented. You see workspaces are constantly filled with high stress, anxiety, and intense, heavy emotions. Many investigators believe that dense, negative energy can pool in these areas over time, creating the perfect feeding ground for poltergeists or parasitic entities. Whatever was in that room was actively feeding off his rising fear, escalating its physical attacks step by step until he finally broke. Bolting out of that office as fast as humanly possible was absolutely the only correct move. This next clip was posted by a dad who was just standing in his kitchen, completely focused on feeding his baby. His back is turned to the rest of the room, leaving him completely blind to what is slowly unfolding right behind him. He actually had no idea the full extent of what happened until he went back and pulled this security footage later. Keep your eyes on the paper towel roll sitting by the sink and watch the upper cabinets.
Ooh, fucking hell, what was that? What was that? I know. What was... That shit me up. Something's falling over. I know.
Seeing an object physically lift off the counter and levitate before dropping is one of the most undeniable displays of poltergeist activity you can capture. It didn't just tip over from a passing breeze, it was actively picked up and dropped. In paranormal research, entities that pull these kinds of stunts are usually classified as attention-seeking. But what makes this specific encounter so chilling is the intelligence behind the timing. It deliberately manipulated the paper towels to create a noise, forcing him to turn around and look. His raw, startled reaction is the exact spike in emotional energy the entity was looking for. Once it had his attention and his adrenaline was peaking, it immediately popped open the upper cabinet to establish its presence in the room. Poltergeist activity is famously drawn to households with high ambient energy, and sometimes the bustling, chaotic energy of raising a child can inadvertently act as a battery for these entities. It didn't want to hurt them. It just wanted to make it very clear that it was standing right there in the kitchen with them. In the following footage, a Reddit user known as Melodic District 264 captures a series of events in what appears to be a service corridor or a storage section of an apartment complex. According to the uploader, he only began recording after hearing a distinct, violent sound while his back was turned. The sound of a heavy, yellow cable being smacked against the wall by an unseen force. He decided to investigate the source of the noise, venturing into the hallway with his phone camera ready. What he captures is a manifestation of movement that is difficult to explain through natural drafts or structural settling. Take a look.
Nigga, something just smacked the fuck. Yo, nigga, what I say, nigga? I mean, I ain't that scary, but no mama is.
The footage shows a yellow cable suddenly tensioned and whipped against the wall with enough force to create an audible crack. In an area like this, one might look for a logical explanation, such as a localized gust of wind, but the way the cable is pulled back before the snap suggests a deliberate physical grip. Furthermore, as the camera pans toward the shadows at the end of the corridor, the atmosphere feels heavy, as if the camera is capturing a residual energy left behind in the bowels of the building. The uploader was so disturbed by the physical nature of this manifestation that he shared the footage seeking an explanation for the escalating activity. While skeptics might suggest a hidden line or a snag in the building's infrastructure, the speed and isolation of the movement remain baffling. Is it possible that the utility areas of buildings, often neglected and empty, can play host to this kind of unsettling activity? I'll let you come up with your own conclusions. In December of 2025, Daisy Summer shared a series of distress calls from her home. According to Daisy, the atmosphere in her house had shifted significantly, characterized by peculiar sounds echoing through the halls during the late night hours. The following footage captures her attempt to document the anomaly after a particularly unsettling encounter while she was getting ready for work. Her distress is palpable as she recounts seeing something in her bathroom that defied logic. Keep your eyes on the shadow extending from behind the bathroom door.
Holy shit, I was just getting ready for work and I freaking saw something in my bathroom that scared the freaking shit out of me. I don't know what it was, but it looked like a ghost. Like literally, I think I just saw a ghost. I want to get out of here. I want to get out of my house. I'm so scared. It was like right there where those shadows are. Those are shadows from the towel right there. But there was like a shadow right there where those other shadows are. And it looked like a person. It looked like a ghost. Like right there. Oh shit. Holy fuck! Ah!
You can see a dark, elongated mass is visible near the floor, seemingly separate from the natural shadows cast by the surrounding furniture. While some viewers initially suggested it was merely a trick of the light, the escalation occurs toward the very end of the clip. Just as she pans away, a dark protrusion, resembling a head or a limb, briefly extends from behind the doorframe into the hallway before she bolts in terror. The movement is fluid and lacks the jagged quality of a digital artifact or a camera glitch. In the realm of paranormal research, this behavior is often associated with shadow people, entities that are frequently reported as peeking from corners or lurking in the periphery of vision. Many researchers believe these manifestations are not just residual hauntings, but sentient entities that feed off of high-frequency human emotions, specifically fear and anxiety. By peeking out and then retreating, the entity may be deliberately testing Daisy, gauging her reaction to maximize the emotional output it can draw from her. Some viewers in the comments suggested that Daisy's sheer terror might actually be strengthening the entity's presence. One user suggested that instead of fleeing, she should have met the anomaly with anger or annoyance, theorizing that by removing the food source of fear, the entity would lose its ability to manifest physically. What do you think? Was this a temporary overlap of dimensions, or a predatory entity thriving on the atmosphere of a frightened household? This next clip explores the thin line between grief and the supernatural, where a house once filled with life suddenly feels hollow. In late 2024, Tonya Richardson began documenting what she believes is the residual energy of her beloved Maltese, Frenchie, who had passed away 5 months prior. Tonya explains that Frenchie had a very specific habit. She loved to burrow under the blankets and playfully chase Tonya's feet. What began as a memory soon manifested as a physical occurrence that Tonya captures in real time. The setting is her quiet bedroom, where the blankets begin to shift in a manner that is uncannily familiar. Take a look.
Y'all see that? My feet are literally right here. My blanket will just randomly move like that. That is so weird. Stop! Y'all, my hair standing on my arms, because that's creepy. It does this about the same time every morning. So I'm not sure what it is trying to tell me something, but it's creepy.
The movement captured is both fluid and localized. You can see the duvet bunching and sliding as if a small weight is pressing against it from underneath. While a draft or a mechanical fan might cause a light ripple, this particular motion has a distinct hopping quality. The blanket doesn't just flutter, it appears to be nudged by a deliberate physical force. It's an unsettling sight, yet Tonya speaks to the empty space with a sense of comfort, convinced that Frenchie has returned to her favorite spot. However, as the days passed, the activity didn't just remain a comfort, it became more frequent and intense. Skeptics often point to simple explanations like hidden pets or household fans, but Tonya was determined to rule out any logical interference. To provide context for the escalation, she decided to pull back the veil and show exactly what, or what isn't, behind the movement.
My baby come to see me again. Frenchie, what you doing? What you doing? Are you gonna play tonight? Are you gonna play? There you are. Hello. Hello. What you doing? What you doing, baby? You trying to find the right spot? Just not finding the right spot, huh? Oh, look. Nothing under the bed. Look. Nothing under the sheets. Nothing there. Nothing there.
The most baffling part of this footage occurs when Tonya lifts the heavy comforter. As she clears the area, the movement stops instantly, and the space beneath the sheets is completely empty. She even goes as far as to show the area under the bed, proving there are no other pets or hidden devices that could be tethered to the fabric. The ghostly weight seems to vanish the moment it's observed directly, a pattern often noted in poltergeist-style manifestations, where an entity reacts to direct human focus. In the paranormal community, some believe these fur baby hauntings are beautiful signs of a bond that transcends death. Others, however, take a more cautious approach. There is a theory that certain opportunistic entities can mimic the behaviors of a lost loved one or pet to gain trust and lower a person's spiritual guard. By imitating the kangaroo jumping style Frenchie was known for, an anomaly could potentially root itself in the home by feeding off the residents' grief and longing. Whether this is a heartwarming visit from a loyal companion or a more deceptive manifestation remains a topic of heavy debate among viewers. Some find the footage profoundly moving, while others feel an instinctual dread at the sight of the empty sheets shifting on their own. I'll let you come up with your own conclusions. This next clip highlights just how quickly a familiar space can turn hostile. In January of 2026, Perry and her roommate were at home alone when they were startled by a series of inexplicable sounds. The atmosphere within the apartment shifted from relaxed to high alert in a matter of seconds, as the duo began to suspect they weren't as alone as they thought. The footage captures their immediate reaction, and the sheer urgency in their body language is undeniable. Take a look.
I'm recording. Wait. Do you hear that? Can you check the security footage? Oh my god. What is it?
The panic is palpable as they move through the apartment, whispering and checking corners. Rather than risk exiting through the front door, where the sounds seemed to originate, the two roommates were so convinced of an intruder that they opted to flee through a window instead. However, the mystery only deepened when they later reviewed their security footage. A motion-sensing camera pointed at the kitchen began to track an invisible presence. The software identifies a person in the empty space just above a robot vacuum cleaner, tracking the anomaly as it moves across the floor, yet nothing is visible to the human eye. The escalation continued throughout the night, with the roommates capturing further evidence that suggests something far more complex than a simple intruder. In this follow-up, the camera captures the heavy front door mysteriously unlatching and swinging open of its own accord. There is no visible hand on the handle, and the roommates are nowhere near the entrance. In the paranormal world, this kind of activity is often categorized as a skinwalker manifestation or a highly active poltergeist, particularly when sensors are triggered by empty space. Some viewers pointed out that the way the sensor tracked the movement above the vacuum suggests an entity with a distinct height and mass, even if it remains shrouded from the light spectrum. While skeptics might suggest a draft or a mechanical failure in the door latch, the combination of the roommate's genuine fear and the camera's technical detection of a person makes this case particularly baffling. Could there be something dwelling within the walls of the apartment, or perhaps a transient entity that followed one of them home? If your security system alerted you to a person in an empty room, would you stay to see if it manifested, or would you be the first one out the window? This next clip takes us inside a veterinary hospital, a place often charged with high stakes and deep emotional transitions. In late 2025, a veterinary professional named Renee shared footage that has left many in the medical community questioning what happens in these clinics after hours. Renee explains that while staying late to care for a sick colleague's pet and a puppy battling parvovirus, she and her co-worker, Tessia, were interrupted by a sound that simply didn't belong. The atmosphere in the treatment room becomes tense as a phantom vocalization echoes through the sterile environment. Take a look.
That's weird. Where's that coming from? It don't sound like it's coming from. Okay, so you still want to do banana bag, 15 mils an hour, head of starch, 4 mils an hour. It's coming from over this way. Alright. Medication, metronidazole, 15 mils BID, Wait, is it Scarlet? Wait. I sent it off before getting meds. Is my drunk off up there? What's coming from up there? They may have done that when they switched the bag. Is it the new bag for it? No. Alright, guys, can I get it? Help me. It's in the lobby. It's coming from the lobby. No, it's not. Where is it? It's not in here. What is that? What, phantom dolls? That's fucking weird. Is it Charles? You heard that, right? We all heard that. I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear anything. What did you hear? A dog keeps yapping. Is it Dakota? No. Look at this. Look at the front porch and make sure they didn't dump one or throw one in the pen outside or something. I didn't hear anything. You're not hearing that. Three of us heard it. I didn't hear it. No. You heard it, right? I heard it. I didn't hear it. It sounds like it's coming from this side. You can't hear it at ISO though, right? No. Look at that fence out there. Make sure somebody throw one in the fence. y'all talking about? Yeah, that's a brand new tag. That's fucking bizarre. It is? Yeah. That's I haven't heard it. I still haven't heard it. All three of us heard it. And it was coming from that. I think it was in that room or something. Like, I feel like it was like right from the board. We're going to play that back. I didn't even hear anything. Can you play it like specifically in those rooms or anything?
As you can hear, a distinct, mournful canine cry fills the room. Renee notes that there were only 4 animals present at the time: a cat, an elderly Great Dane, the sick puppy, and an old healer. None of them were vocalizing, yet the sound is clear and persistent. In paranormal research, hospitals and clinics are often cited as hotspots for residual energy, places where intense life and death moments leave a permanent echo. Some believe this could be the spirit of a recently euthanized pet, perhaps still seeking comfort in a familiar setting. However, the activity at this hospital isn't limited to just sound. Renee later shared surveillance footage from the kennel area that suggests a much more physical presence. In this chilling follow-up, watch the latch of one of the cages closely. Without any visible interference, the metal lever is seen rising on its own. When the door doesn't swing open immediately, it appears to be pulled outward by an unseen force, allowing the animal inside to potentially wander out. There are no shadows, no reflections of people in the room, and no mechanical failures that would explain a multi-step process like unlatching and then pulling a door. This level of physical manipulation often points to an intelligent haunting, an entity capable of interacting with its environment to achieve a specific goal. While skeptics might suggest a loose latch or a vibration from the building, the deliberate nature of the opening is hard to dismiss. Is it possible that the bond between humans and animals is so strong that even in death, these patients stay behind to navigate the only place that tried to save them? I'll let you come up with your own conclusions. If you were working a night shift and heard a phantom cry from an empty kennel, would you shrug it off as a residual echo, or would you start looking for a new clinic? This video you're about to watch comes from the home surveillance footage of a co-worker's house. According to the person who shared this, the homeowner has been dealing with a heavy, oppressive presence in this specific area of their house, claiming that they repeatedly see this exact same shadowy figure lurking around late at night. Finally, their security camera triggered and captured what they've been dreading. In paranormal analysis, whenever a hazy, indistinct shape drifts across the screen like that, skeptics immediately jump to a few standard conclusions. They'll argue it's just an out-of-focus bug walking across the camera lens, or perhaps the headlights of a passing car refracting through the glass. But we can definitively rule the car lights out. The co-worker who lives in the house confirmed that at the exact moment this anomaly was recorded, there were absolutely no cars driving by outside and no external lights shining onto the property. If there is no external light source, there can be no reflection, which means this shadow light anomaly wasn't caused by the environment. It was an intelligence generating its own luminous energy to manifest in our reality. What the camera caught wasn't a trick of lighting or a wandering insect. It was the physical visual discharge of the exact recurring entity the homeowner knows is waiting for them in the dark. What do you think about this? This next clip shows an anomaly that has baffled a homeowner for the last 4 years. One night, a strange, erratic light source triggered her camera's motion sensors, so she uploaded the video and it sparked a massive debate. The movement is so distinctly autonomous and fluttery that the creator's friend and dozens of people in the comments are entirely convinced the camera captured a fairy. Naturally, skeptics were quick to jump in with 2 main scientific explanations. Either it's simply a trick of the light reflecting off the kitchen counter, or it's the camera's infrared lights refracting off a tiny spider web hanging just in front of the lens. Keep those theories in mind as you watch the footage. If you watch the trajectory closely, both of those logical explanations completely fall apart. First, if this were merely a reflection, like a passing car's headlights sliding across the kitchen counter, the light would physically bend, distort, or break the moment it crossed the edge of the countertop. But it doesn't. The light maintains its shape and trajectory perfectly. It doesn't bend with the counter because it isn't on the counter. It is a free-floating, three-dimensional energy source moving through the air directly in front of it. The spiderweb theory is much more plausible. In fact, it's exactly what the homeowner thought when her Ring notifications first started going off like crazy. To solve the problem, she physically went out into the room and scrubbed that entire corner, checking for and clearing out any spider webs within a 5-foot radius. But here is the detail that turns this from a mild curiosity into a terrifying encounter. The footage we just watched was recorded after she cleaned the area. Whatever this anomaly was, it wasn't a web and it wasn't leaving. The persistent, unexplained presence of this energy finally pushed the homeowner to her breaking point. She was so spooked that she grabbed her dog at 3 a.m., abandoned the house, and drove 40 minutes to sleep on her parents' couch. When she finally returned the next day, the anomaly was completely gone and she never saw it again. What do you think that was? I'll let you be the judge. This next clip takes us into an environment universally recognized as a massive focal point for the unexplained, a cemetery. In paranormal research, graveyards are considered active batteries of residual energy that hold a dense concentration of spiritual activity simply due to the emotional weight and history attached to the ground. The footage comes from a creator who makes a regular habit of live streaming his late-night graveyard visits. As he stands in the dark, his face covered by a black balaclava while he interacts with his chat, pay close attention to the background just over his right shoulder.
Graben. Pinche velador está loco. Ese en Hidalgo. Dylan Adrián, ese en Hidalgo, no.
Right in the middle of his broadcast, the distinct silhouette of what appears to be a full-bodied figure casually walks through the shadows directly behind the tombstones. When someone repeatedly uses a final resting place for entertainment, they inevitably run the risk of disturbing whatever is anchored there. Spirits, much like the living, can eventually reach a breaking point when their peace is constantly interrupted. This manifestation doesn't feel like a random, wandering soul just caught on camera by accident. Given how often he streams there, it feels much more like a subtle, calculated warning. It's a quiet, but deeply unsettling way for the residents of that graveyard to let him know that they are watching, they just want to rest, and they have finally had enough of his cameras. If an entity is willing to step out of the shadows and walk directly behind you while you're live streaming, it might be time to find a new location to film. In this next clip, we explore a concept that's so scary, it sounds straight out of a nightmare. What if you aren't just living with a spirit, but living inside a monster house that is actively hunting you? You see, for weeks, the guy in this video had been dealing with deeply unsettling auditory phenomena, most notably hearing distinct, disembodied laughter in his house when he knew for a fact he was completely home alone. But tonight, the entity decided to stop laughing from the shadows and start physically interacting with the environment. He hears the heavy, rhythmic thud of his kitchen cabinets opening and slamming shut on their own. So, armed with his camera, he goes in to investigate. But what makes this footage so sinister is the undeniable intelligence behind the activity. The entity plays a predatory game of cat and mouse. The moment he steps into the kitchen, the noise dead stops. But the second he turns his camera away, it immediately starts again. Watch what happens when the entity finally decides to drop the act and show itself.
Something opens my cabinet and laughs.
No one's in my cupboard that I'm aware of. Oh my god. Fuck that. I swear one of these cupboards just went. It wasn't the same noise that usually happens, but one of these. Maybe that. No, that won't go because it's got stuff in front of it. This is bullshit. I swear to God that cupboard is moving. Oh my god. Oh shit. Right, that's it. I'm going. Oh my god.
The sheer, unfiltered panic in his voice as he yells is the sound of a man realizing he is no longer at the top of the food chain in his own home. But the most chilling detail happens just as he turns to flee. The cabinet doesn't just slam shut, it violently swings completely wide open. In paranormal psychology, an entity that plays red light, green light with a victim isn't just haunting a space, it's actively trying to break the occupant down psychologically to establish dominance. When that cabinet swings wide open, right as he turns his back to run, it is the entity claiming its territory. This leaves us with one final, scary question. If your own home suddenly turned into a hunting ground and things around the house start playing games with you, what would you do? This next clip was posted by a mum who's convinced that her toddler has just seen a ghost. It is a long-standing theory in the paranormal community that young children possess a heightened awareness, allowing them to see things that adults simply brush past. What starts as a normal, happy moment between a mother and her toddler hanging out on the bed quickly shifts when the child's attention is completely derailed by something invisible in the room. The mother noted in her caption that while her daughter didn't cry before or after the specific footage, and that there have been other times in this house where she was absolutely petrified by whatever she was staring at. Watch her expression change and listen to what she points at.
Nipple. Why are you scared? Please. What's wrong? Dada. Where's Dada? Oh. Okay. Oh, what are those? Huh? Others. I don't know. What is it? What is it? There's nothing up there. No, we are there. What? No, we are there. Where? We are there. Don't know it goes. A ghost? Did you say it's a ghost? No, it's a ghost. Where's a ghost? No, it's a ghost. Oh.
It's definitely chilling to watch a child go from laughing to being completely hyperfixated on an empty space. But the most striking part is her vocabulary. She explicitly points into the void and identifies the presence as a ghost. Toddlers don't really have the psychological capacity to fake a complex visual tracking response just for fun. She is actively watching something move across the room. The mum handles it like most parents probably would, assuming it's just her child's active imagination. But from an investigator's perspective, Verbally acknowledging and inviting an unverified entity closer is always a risky move, even as a joke. It gives whatever is standing in that room validation. It leaves you wondering, when a child points to an empty corner and tells you someone is there, at what point do you stop laughing and start believing them?